We're back out here once again, and today we're talking about some critical parts of bass fishing that pro anglers just don't share on YouTube. What are they, and how can you apply them to your fishing? Well, we're going to talk all about it. Oh, there we go. There's another one. This is going to be a good day, kids. And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing. And as we all know, a lot of pro anglers have made the jump to YouTube. Guys from MLF and Bass and what have you. Pros like Edwin Evers, Mike Iaconelli, Gerald Swindle. These guys have been around on YouTube for a while, and they always offer up some great information. However, there are some cracks in what they're telling you. There are some gaps. And I'm not going to say it's malicious. I'm not saying, hey, we're not going to tell you guys everything just so we can keep that in our back pocket and we can outfish you on the water. No, it's just the nature of the beast. They've got sponsors, and the sponsors expect certain amount of visibility. And we all know that's why some anglers started their YouTube channels in the first place, is just so that their brands can get more visibility. It's a sad fact of life, but it's the nature of the beast. So what are those gaps? What are some of the things that you're not seeing pro anglers talk about too often? Well, first and foremost, we have to put things in the right order whenever we're talking about going fishing. And they focus on catching fish, right? They focus on, this is the premier bait for November. This is the buzz bait that I'm using whenever I'm fishing up shallow. This is the new jerk bait that I have. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. For the most part, a lot of the times, those are very fine baits and they work well. But it's only part of the puzzle. The first part is always find the fish. And you don't ever hear them talk so much about finding the fish. And it could be for several reasons. First and foremost, they have electronics. They've got an entire suite of the best electronics available. And that certainly makes things much easier. They get out to the water, they can start graphing, they can start side scanning and down imaging and putting out waypoints. And then they can use their 360 and their forward-facing sonar to dial things in. A lot of guys, me included, we don't have all of that. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. You know, that's an argument for a different day. I personally don't have any problem with the electronics. I just don't use them. But what does that mean for your average angler? Well, it means you have to adjust how you're fishing whenever you're out on the water. It means you have to adjust the things that you're doing and the way that you're doing them. In other words, you have to use your eyes and you have to use what you know about bass patterns and bass behavior. And it's not hard. It's actually very, very simple. The hardest part is the roadblock in our brain that makes us think it's very hard. But finding bass is a very visual thing based on the surroundings that you see. Like I was talking about the last time I was out on the water, I saw balls of bait everywhere. I could see them with my own eyes. And it wasn't out in the middle of the lake. These bass were up shallow. They were right near the bank. And that's common for this time of year. So that was one of the biggest clues that I had. Obviously, the bass are going to be around the bait. And another thing is the changing conditions, right? So if we know that it's going to be windy, we know that that wind is going to be blowing very hard. It's going to create current. It's going to create not just current, but it's also going to create current seams. That's where bass patterns come in, right? That's where knowing how bass relate to current is going to help you. You can see with your own eyeballs. You can see where that wind-driven bank is. You can see right where that wind is going. So you know, right on that bank, there's going to be a lot of nutrients, and it's a great place to start. You can also dial it in by looking for current seams in that area. We've talked about it before. You see a main lake point jutting out, and you see the wind cutting across that main lake point. You can see that on the backside of that main lake point, there's going to be a natural current seam just because of how the wind is blowing. Bass love to set up right on those edges, especially largemouth bass. They like to set up right in those areas where they can use the current to their advantage to get a quick, easy meal, because the bait fish are going to be using the current to get the nutrients. And where the bait fish are, where the prey species are, that's where the bass are going to be. And we really don't see the pros focusing on that so much. You hear about, this is my new jerkbait, this is my new spinnerbait. Again, that's fine. But we need to locate the bass first, because you can fish the right water with the wrong lure and still catch fish. But if you're fishing the wrong water with the right lure, you're not going to catch anything because there's no fish there. That's the first thing. Whenever we get out to the water, that's the first thing. Now, when I head out to the lake, and I think I know where those bass are going to be, I have a pretty good idea because I've already done my homework. I've checked the lake conditions, I've checked the weather conditions, I know which way the wind is going to be blowing, and I know how that's going to set up on my fishery because I've been fishing it for 40 years. Even on a new fishery, this still applies because wind is going to blow, it's going to move the water in the same way no matter where you are. Wind is going to blow the water and it's going to move. So all you have to do is translate that to your fishery. I know pretty much where the bass are going to be setting up. Now, I can see the bait balls when I get out there. That's a bonus. That's a plus. Those are going to be random because the bass move them around. You'll have bait balls here one day, you'll have bait balls here another day. If you can see that whenever you get to the lake, well, that's always a great thing. But if you get more choppy water, you get more of a windy day, that's going to negate that quite a bit. Well, that's going to change things up. So we need to prepare for those instances. We need to prepare for all those different circumstances. So I like to have at least three different patterns, 3 different types of baits that I want to work on any given day. And I'm thinking of bottom bouncing, where those bass might be lower in the water. And it could be very, very shallow, right? Like this jig, right? And this is a diamondback baits. This is a flipping jig. This is in the 1/2 ounce. Actually, this is in the 3/8 ounce. And this is that sundrop color. And I just want to thank everyone who stopped by the store and purchased these. You guys have been amazing. And the letters and the emails that I've been getting and the pictures about the fish you guys have been catching, I'm just blown away. So thank you so much. If you get a chance, head on over to my shop at diamondbackbaits.myshopify.com. I'm going to put a link in the description as well as the pinned comment below. We've got these, we've got casting jigs, we've got football jigs, we've got a ton of different colors. You guys are going to love them. So head on over there and check them out. And for those who have bought jigs, thank you so much. But this is going to be one of the ways that I'm going to be fishing along the bottom. And I will be fishing up under brush. I will take one of these jigs in this sundrop color here. This is the one that I like whenever we've got a lot of clear water, whenever there's not a lot of stain and it's a more natural presentation. I can use this with a crawl trailer, a simple crawl trailer, and I will skip this under flooded brush. It skips very, very well, this and the casting jig. But if I'm really in the thick weeds or if I'm in some thick vegetation, I'm going to use this instead. And I'll skip up under that flooded brush and I will work those spots. And I have caught some really nice fish using those jigs doing that. Another way I can do it, well, obviously, is going to be using a stick bait. I like to Texas rig these. I like to Waco rig these. But if I'm looking more for that bottom bouncing technique, then I'm obviously going to be Texas rigging these with a 1/4 ounce bullet weight. And I can keep that bottom contact. I can keep it closer to the bottom. Again, I'm working it along weed lines. I'm working it close to the bank, under vegetation, back out a little bit, near weed lines where we have that drop off. That's where those bass are going to congregate, especially if there's going to be current that's flowing through there. Those bass are going to be using those hard edges as a place of refuge where they can come out and strike into that current, get what they want, and then go back out. But also, something else that a jig and a Texas rig do is they create curiosity if you're fishing down in that grass, because that grass moves around. Those fish see it and they go down in there and they investigate. You can get a lot of bites that way. You can get a lot of bites just by the bass's curiosity. You don't have to have everything as a reaction strike. You don't have to have everything as them thinking it's prey. Sometimes curiosity and piquing their curiosity is a great way to catch those bass. So we come up a little bit higher in the water column. Let's say I want to work the middle of that water column, where maybe chase those suspended bass, see where they are, check them out. Well, on a clear, calm day, or calm-ish, I still like to have a little bit of a wind, I'm using something like this natural translucent colored jerkbait. And this is just an H2O Express. It's got a little bit of a greenback on it. You guys know this. This is my lucky jerkbait. I've caught hundreds of fish on this thing. It's a trooper. Just because it's an H2O Express, I think I paid $5 for this thing, maybe $6 for this thing. I have crushed so many fish with this, and some nice tanks too. It just keeps producing. But I'm using this whenever there's more water clarity and less water movement. And this is a suspender. I'm fishing from the boat, I want a suspending jerkbait. If I'm fishing from the bank, I want a jerkbait that rises. So that way, as I'm fishing up that gradient, I can give it pauses and have that jerkbait float back up out of trouble and then start working it again. If I've got some wind or I've got some cloud cover, right? I've got a little bit more cloud cover, then I'm going to go with something a little bit darker. And this is my newest toy. This is that Sixth Sense Provoke jerkbait. And these are a little bit more on the pricey side. This is probably $14, $15 in that Berkeley Stunna price range. It's a great jerkbait. Now this, right now, this time of year, this is more of a slow float. It doesn't, in that cooler water, it wants to rise just a little bit. Normally in the warmer weather, it's going to be a suspending jerkbait. But remember, water density and temperature is going to affect how that bait floats. Now, if we have some more wave activity, if we've got some stronger winds and some stronger current, and we've got some good cloud cover, then I'm going with something like this. This has got that chrome flash. This is that KVD 200 size. I like these smaller jerkbaits, especially around bait balls, because this stands out. It blends in with what those bass are already seeing, but that herky-jerky movement also stands out and attracts some really strong bites. And I'm using this, like I said, whenever I've got some good cloud cover, I've got some good wave action, I've got some stain in the water, and I need just a little bit of flash. I need just a little bit of glint in the water to attract those bass's attention. And that's where I'm going to get those really heavy strikes. So I want a bottom bouncing technique based on what I'm seeing. I want a middle of the water column technique. I want something in that suspending range. Now, lastly, I always want to have a finesse type of technique, even in the wind. Even if we've got some strong wind, you can do something like this, a weightless soft plastic jerkbait. I recently did a video where I took a caffeine shad and fished it all day in heavy, heavy wind. There was some technique to it. I had to keep the wind at my back, but I caught so many fish doing that. And this is just one of those cream soft plastic jerkbaits, right? Just a little cream fluke. And you guys know I love these things. I use the white ones. I use the smoky shad ones. They're $1.25 at Walmart. And they work great. The fish don't know that they're cheap. They attack these things like crazy. So that gives me another way. It gives me the way that I'm catching those three different types of fishing, right? Bottom bouncing, suspending, and then more finesse, maybe a little higher in the water column, maybe a little that mid-range of the water column. I can let this sink. I can give it a little bit more time to get down there, and I can work it either more quickly or I can work it more slowly. And that gives me the ability to cover all of those ranges. And I'm not glued into anything, right? I am not really hard set into anything. There are a lot of times when I have taken off everything that I had tied on when I get to the lake. I will take and change everything based on what I'm seeing. You have to adapt. You have to think about what it is that you are seeing. That's something else you're not hearing whenever you're watching the pros channel, is they don't talk so much about, hey, when you get out to the water and you don't think this is going to work, then try something else. Every fishery is different. Every fishery has its own personality, and the more you can hone in on what your fishery likes. Now, bass are bass, and they're going to like a lot of the same things, but the way things set up may be different on your fishery. Wind directions may be more prevalent out of the east. They might like that, or they might like a certain pocket, the way the current flows across, and you can use certain types of baits that match what happened in your fishery. But the main thing is find the fish, find what those fish want to eat, and be adaptable. Make sure you relate it to your fishery. Once you start putting those things together, even on the toughest days, you're still going to find that you're able to catch more fish. Your skunk days are going to go a lot fewer and far between. And that's the point. Whatever we can do to catch more fish. So just remember, the end all be all isn't what magic bait you can throw. It's what are those fish doing, where are they located, and how can you entice them. Figure those things out, and you're going to have some really excellent days out on the water. So there you have it. A lot of the pieces of the puzzle that the pros sometimes miss. You've always got to find the fish first, find what they're doing, and then pick your lures according to that. And maybe the most important thing of all, don't be afraid to change lures out if something isn't working. Be adaptable. You do those things, and you're going to have some really great days out on the water. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.